So in today's practice, which is a 20-minute practice, we're going to stay grounded, stay close to the earth, starting on the back. Of course, you can do this seated if you prefer. So you might like to just take some breaths here, settling into the space, bringing the hands onto the ribs, onto the belly, wherever feels right. Give yourself some space, taking the arms out wide, palms facing up. Taking the arms up over the head, stretching out through the shoulder blades, lifting the fingertips towards the sky. Just taking a few of these, mobilising through the shoulders to start. The feet are on the floor, but of course they can be stretched out long if that feels more comfortable for you. You might like now to take your hands behind the head, interlaced or just one at a time. And then we'll take an exercise that stimulates our vagus nerve, which is a sensory nerve that travels all the way back to the brain. It tells the brain, sends all those messages to let it know if things are okay or not. Head. And then take the gaze to the left. Keep the head exactly where it is. And just wait until you perhaps notice some sort of loosening. It doesn't have to be in the eyes. It might be in the mouth, it might be in the body. Usually about 30 to 60 seconds on each side. When you're ready, releasing the hands. We'll come into a deep twist. So taking one leg over the other and dropping the lower leg down to the floor. Of course, if preferable, take windscreen wiper legs instead. And we'll take one on each side. Really taking our time to just feel into the hips here. Notice how they're feeling today. We'll just lift the arms up above the head and wave them to and fro. This might look a bit silly, but we're just mobilising through the wrists, flexing them one way and then the other. Almost like a wave going up and down, like you're doing your own personal Mexican wave. You can rotate the wrists in and out. This is a more accessible way of, if you imagine you're on all fours and you're rolling forwards over the wrist, if it feels better to do it like this is always a great option. And you can also press the hands up to the ceiling. Perhaps you're doing a push-up, but on your back. And then just take some windscreen wiper legs here. If you've already taken them, you can take some more. Gently dropping the knees one way and the other, keeping an eye on when your natural range of motion feels like it's been hit, that end point. Keeping an eye on your natural range of motion, where that end point is for you. And then, in the spirit of taking a really gentle practice, if you've got a block or a brick or something that approximates to it, you can take that under the sacroiliac area. So that's just above the crease of the bum. And this is a restorative bridge. So it means you don't have to lift the hips up of your own accord for a long period of time. You can stay in this if you wanted to pause the video for minutes. Sometimes I do. It really digs into that muscle. You can also play around with lifting the legs up into the air, take them into a V shape. This can also be done at the wall for added accessibility. And this is just checking in with mobilization, with range of movement, and all the time that brick is really getting into the muscles. I quite like rocking on it. You might even like to try doing some windscreen wiper legs with the knees up in the air, the feet up in the air, just noticing the difference. Let's come meet in seated. And we'll start by just stretching out the neck. You can take the hand over the head and hold onto the scalp as you tilt the head to support it. So whatever direction the head's going in, it's that arm that you're holding over it to just support it. You don't have to do this, of course. You can take some circles, half circles of the neck, and then drawing the arms out, rounding the spine and then arching. These seated cat-cows, as we've discussed, could be a little bit like a bird flapping its wings. This is a more accessible way if taking your arms above the shoulders doesn't feel great for you. Another option for hip circles is to keep the legs crossed. You do not need to take your legs out wide, it's just a preference for me. So one direction then the other. You might like to play around with both. We'll take a moment here to lengthen through the spine as we sit, just sinking the sit bones down and lifting up through the crown of the head. And then moving into a twist. So taking one arm out and then across and onto the opposite knee. Taking the gaze round. With each inhalation you might like to think about extending and each exhalation rotating. Just a touch, not trying to force anything. And after you've done both sides, we'll come into some side stretches. So bringing the fingertips down onto the earth, lifting up through the upper arm, through the side body, the serratus muscles, and then coming out around the front just to avoid any yanking through the shoulder, moving the whole body as you come. Taking some shoulder rotations, lifting the arms to shoulder height if that's available. Taking the arms out and moving from the shoulder rather than the hands, taking it one direction and then the other. If you keep these quite slow, you'll really get into the muscles here. And then some more Tai Chi-esque movements. So taking the arms out wide in a circle and bringing it back round. And then stretching the legs out wide, rotating the ankles and stirring the pot. So again, take any options you need to here. Interlacing the fingers and then taking the arms around in a circle, like you're stirring a pot, like a witch's brew. And then let's find our Uberfishtakanasana, where our wide-legged forward fold. Hands can come either in the middle, they could come to the toes, they could come to anywhere that feels comfortable for you. Moving forward from the pelvis. Again, trying to keep the back nice and long. And we'll move into an open twist. So you might like to bring one leg in here, just bending it in to take the pressure off the hamstrings. Back of the hand comes to the calf and then drawing the elbow back and up, opening out to the sky. Then transitioning through Baddha Konasana, band angle posture. Soles of the feet are together, hands on the knees to support if that feels like something you would like to do. And we'll take that on both sides. Stretching the legs out in front of you to come into your Dandasana, your staff posture, sometimes seen as a rest posture. It may or may not be for you. So coming now into Dandasana, staff posture. So bringing the palms down to the floor, fingers pointing forwards. And you can, of course, use bricks if, like me, you've got quite short arms that don't touch the floor. Flexing the feet as well. And then we're going to find our way into a few seated postures. So we'll start with what's sometimes called a hurdle stretch or swan. We're going to sit almost as if we're about to go over a hurdle. So one leg is in and across the body, the other leg kind of comes out behind it with the foot going out behind you. So again, if this is too much on the back leg, feel free to just straighten out that leg like you're doing a open twist. And you can bring a block underneath the bottom to balance out the hips. You might find you tend to lean one side when you're doing this posture. And you can either keep this totally still, which is more of a yin way to do it, just sort of hanging out in the posture. Or you can move and rock from side to side. And then going to transition across to the other side. And you don't have to do this in any particular way. You can find your own movement. As you sit here, just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Feeling balanced, feeling calm. So transitioning now onto all fours, I'm going to come into a pigeon. You can of course do this on your back. You just take the ankle across the thigh and bring the knees in. You can come into it from all fours, from down facing dog. You bring the front leg across the body. If you've got quite hypermobile hips like me, this will be a 90-degree angle, but for many people it's more of a 45-degree angle. You flex and you point that front foot to protect the ankle. It's called flointing. And you stretch the back leg out behind you. Again, you can bring a block underneath the bottom here to balance out the pelvis. And either you can stay here, you can come into a namaste twist, where you bring one elbow onto the floor and then the hands come to meet. But that can be quite a lot, so feel free to just stay in your standard pigeon. And coming out, some people like to come into downward dog to come out. Some people, like myself, like to roll out and then swap over. Now, because of how much mobility I have in my hips, I can quite easily swap over. But this isn't available to everyone, so feel free to take your time finding that opposite side. This might be quite intense on the hips. This is really strong on hip mobility. And it's really important you pay attention to the knee here, because the knee is being asked to do a lot of movement. So if at any point you feel pain or discomfort in the knee, back away from this posture. There is absolutely no need to injure yourself just because you were trying to stay in a posture for a bit longer. And again, rolling to come out or coming into downward dog. And then we'll close the practice here, just rocking gently back and forward, maybe tucking the toes, just noticing how you feel. And then transitioning back to lying on the back and just taking some time here in your Shavasana to relax and restore. Thank you for coming to practice today.